The morning I discovered my husband's affair didn't begin with chaos. It began with silence. A heavy, suffocating silence that clung to the walls of our home like something alive, something watching. The sky outside our bedroom window was dull gray, the kind that promised rain but never delivered it. The curtain swayed slightly as a cold breeze slipped through the half-open glass, brushing against my skin like a quiet warning. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling an unexplainable weight pressing against my chest. Something was wrong. Not loud, not obvious, but wrong enough to make my heartbeat feel unfamiliar. Ethan stood near the mirror, adjusted his tie with careful precision. His reflection looked perfect. Sharp suit, clean shave, the same man I had married 5 years ago. But something in his eyes had changed. Or maybe I was just now seeing it. "You're up early," he said casually, not turning to look at me. His voice was normal. Too normal. "I couldn't sleep," I replied, my voice quieter than I expected. He nodded, still focused on his reflection. No smile, no teasing comment. No, come back to bed. Just distance. And that's when I noticed it. His phone, buzzing softly on the bedside table. Once, twice, 3 times. Ethan glanced at it quickly, almost nervously, before grabbing it and turning the screen away from me. That tiny movement, it shouldn't have mattered, but it did, because Ethan had never hidden anything from me before. "Work?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," he replied instantly. Too instantly. Just work stuff. Something inside me twisted. Work didn't make his ears turn red. Work didn't make him avoid eye contact. Work didn't make his fingers tremble, even slightly. But I said nothing. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need to be chased. It reveals itself. The house felt emptier after he left. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone had quietly removed all the warmth and replaced it with shadows. I walked into the kitchen, the scent of last night's coffee still lingering faintly in the air. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, each second stretching longer than the last. I tried to distract myself, cleaning, organizing, anything, but my mind kept circling back. That look, that phone, that silence. By noon, the sky had darkened further, and a light drizzle finally began tapping against the windows. I stood there, watching the rain trace slow patterns down the glass, when something pulled me back to the bedroom. Not curiosity. Instinct. Ethan had left in a hurry, and for the first time in 5 years, he had forgotten his old phone. It sat in the drawer, unlocked, waiting. I froze. My heart began pounding so loudly it felt like it might echo through the entire house. "Don't do it," that voice in my head whispered. "Trust him." But another voice, quieter, sharper, cut through it. "You already know." My fingers trembled as I picked up the phone. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. Then I opened it. Messages. A single contact at the top. No name, just a heart emoji. Red heart. My stomach dropped. I tapped it, and in that instant, my entire world shattered. "I miss you already. I wish I woke up next to you this morning instead of her. Last night was perfect. Next time, let's not rush." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. But I kept reading, because pain has a cruel way of demanding to be fully felt. Photos. Her hair cascading over his chest. His smile, one I hadn't seen in months, wide, genuine, alive. He looked happy, happier than he had ever looked with me. And her, God, she was beautiful, effortlessly. The kind of beauty that didn't try. The kind that made you feel invisible just by existing. My hands began to shake uncontrollably. 5 years. 5 years of love, of trust, of building a life together. Reduced to this, a secret thread of messages hidden behind a heart emoji. I sank onto the edge of bed, the room spinning around me. Every memory replayed itself differently now. Every late meeting. Every business trip. Every tired excuse. It all made sense. And somehow, that hurt even more. The rain outside grew heavier, pounding against the windows like a storm that had been waiting to be unleashed. I didn't cry at first. I couldn't. The shock was too deep, too sharp. But then, One message broke me completely. She'll never find out. She trusts me too much. Something inside me snapped. The tears came all at once, violent, uncontrollable, not just from betrayal, but from humiliation. I wasn't just lied to. I was underestimated, reduced to someone predictable, someone blind, someone easy, and that realization burned more than anything else. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning. By the time the front door clicked open that evening, I was still sitting in the same place, still holding the phone, still staring at the screen that had destroyed my life. Ethan walked in, loosening his tie. "Hey," he called out. "You okay?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because the moment I looked at him, I knew I would never see him the same way again. He stepped into the bedroom and froze. His eyes dropped the phone in my hand. And just like that, everything changed. "Where'd you get that?" he asked, his voice tight. I stood up slowly. Every movement felt heavy, deliberate. "You forgot it," I said. Silence. Thick, unbearable. His jaw clenched. "It's not what you think." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. "Really?" I whispered, because it looks exactly like what I think. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. It didn't mean anything. That sentence. That pathetic, predictable sentence. It ignited something inside me. Didn't mean anything? I repeated, my voice rising. "You told her you wished you woke up next to her." He looked frustrated now. Cornered. "It was just what?" I snapped. "Just betrayal? Just lies? Just destroying our marriage like it's nothing?" He didn't answer, because there was no answer, only truth, and it was ugly. The argument that followed was explosive. It was worse. It was cold, sharp, controlled, each word cutting deeper than the last. "I wasn't happy," he admitted finally, his voice low. The words hit me harder than any confession. Not happy, as if that justified everything. As if I didn't deserve honesty. I whispered. He looked away. "I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed again, tears streaming down my face. "Congratulations," I said softly. "You failed." That night, I didn't pack my things. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I simply walked out. Because some betrayals don't deserve a fight. They deserve silence. The rain had stopped by then. The streets glistened under the dim city lights, reflecting a world that suddenly felt unfamiliar. I walked aimlessly, my heels clicking softly against the pavement, each step pulling me further away from the life I thought I had, and closer to something unknown, something unexpected, something that would change everything. I didn't know it yet, but that night, standing alone, broken and lost, I was about to meet the man who would rewrite my entire story. Not with lies, not with betrayal, but with a power, a presence, and a darkness of his own. A billionaire. The city felt different at night. Not quieter, just more honest. Like all the masks people wore during the day slowly slipped off under the glow of streetlights and neon reflections. The air was colder now, carrying the faint scent of rain-soaked asphalt and distant traffic, wrapping around me like a reminder that I was completely alone. Or maybe completely free. I wasn't sure which one scared me more. My heels clicked unevenly against the pavement as I walked without direction, my mind replaying everything over and over again. Ethan's voice, his lies, that message, she'll never find out. I stopped suddenly, gripping my arms tightly as if I could physically hold myself together. 5 years. 5 years reduced to a secret conversation hidden behind a heart emoji. A bitter smile touched my lips. "No," I whispered to myself. "You don't get to break me like this." But the truth was, I already felt broken. I didn't realize how far I had walked until the city around me began to change. The familiar streets faded into something else. Something quieter, more polished, almost untouched by chaos. The buildings grew taller, sleeker, their glass surfaces reflecting soft golden lights instead of harsh neon. This wasn't my part of the city. This was where power lived. Wealth, control, and people who never had to wonder if they were enough. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how out of place I looked. My makeup was smudged, my hair slightly messy, my expression hollow. I should leave. That thought crossed my mind instantly, but my feet didn't move, because something ahead of me had caught my attention. A building, tall, commanding, its structure cut sharply into the sky, a masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to glow from within. The entrance was lined with soft lights, and a black luxury car was parked just outside, its engine humming quietly. I stared at it for a moment longer than I should have, drawn to it, like it was calling me. And maybe in a strange way, it was, "Miss." The voice startled me. I turned quickly to see a man in a tailored black suit standing near the entrance. His posture was straight, his expression polite but observant. "You can't stand here," he said gently. "This is private property." Embarrassment flushed through me instantly. "I'm sorry," I murmured, stepping back. "I didn't realize." "It's all right." The voice that interrupted me was different, deeper, calm, controlled, and somehow more powerful than anything I had heard all day. The suited man immediately straightened further, stepping aside. "Sir," my breath caught. I turned slowly, and that's when I saw him. He stepped out of the car like he belonged to the night itself. Tall, imposing, dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit that fit him like it was designed around him rather than for him. His presence wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. It commanded attention without asking for it. His eyes found mine almost instantly, sharp, observant, unreadable. For a moment, neither of us spoke. And in that silence, something shifted. Something I didn't understand, but felt deeply. "You look lost," he said finally. His voice wasn't mocking. It wasn't sympathetic either. It was factual, and somehow that made it worse. "I'm not," I replied quickly, even though it was a lie. One corner of his lips lifted slightly. "Aren't you?" The question lingered between us. Heavy, unavoidable. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because for the first time that night, someone had seen through me completely. "I didn't mean to stand here," I said instead, my voice quieter now. "I'll leave." I turned, ready to walk away, ready to disappear back into the darkness where I belonged. "Wait!" That single word stopped me. I hesitated, then slowly turned back. He was watching me carefully now, not in a way that felt intrusive, but in a way that felt intentional. "Are you all right?" he asked. Such a simple question, but it hit harder than anything else, because no one had asked me that today. Not really. And suddenly, I didn't trust my voice to answer, so I nodded, a small, unconvincing nod. He didn't believe me. I could tell. "Come inside." The words caught me off guard. "I'm sorry." I blinked. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said calmly. "Especially not like this." I stiffened slightly. "I don't even know you." Another faint smile. "That's fair." There was a pause. Then, "Adrian." The name settled into the air between us. Strong, confident, unforgettable. I hesitated. Every instinct told me this was a bad idea, that I should walk away, that I shouldn't trust a stranger, especially one who looked like he controlled entire worlds with a single glance. But another voice inside me whispered something else. "You have nothing left to lose." And that was the most dangerous truth of all. "Just for a few minutes," he added. "You look like you need a place to breathe." A place to breathe. God, I didn't even realize how much I needed that until he said it. Slowly, reluctantly, I nodded. The inside of the building was just as overwhelming as the outside. Soft golden lighting. Marble floors that reflected every step. A faint, expensive scent in the air. Clean, sharp, impossible to place. Everything felt controlled. Perfect. Like chaos wasn't allowed to exist here. And for a moment, neither was my pain. We stepped into a private elevator. The doors closed quietly behind us, sealing us into a space that suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I became hyper-aware of everything. The subtle hum of movement, the reflection of myself in the mirrored walls. Tired, broken, completely out of place next to him. Adrian stood beside me, hands in his pockets, calm as ever, unaffected, untouchable. Rough night? He asked casually. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. You could say that. He glanced at me briefly. Do you want to talk about it? No. Yes. I didn't know, but the words came out anyway. My husband cheated on me. Silence filled the elevator. Heavy, but not uncomfortable. Adrian didn't react immediately, didn't offer pity, didn't interrupt. He just listened, and somehow that meant more than anything else. I found out this morning. I continued, my voice steadier now. 5 years, and it meant nothing to him. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. Men like that always think they won't get caught, he said quietly. There was something in his tone, something personal, something dark. I noticed it immediately. You sound like you're speaking from experience, I said softly. His eyes met mine again, and this time there was no unreadable distance, only something deeper, colder. I am. The elevator doors opened, and whatever story he carried behind those 2 words, I knew I had just stepped into something far bigger than my own. The doors of the elevator slid open silently, revealing a world that didn't feel real. For a moment, I didn't step out, because what stood in front of me wasn't just a space. It was a different life. Adrian walked out first, as if this world naturally moved around him, as if everything here existed because of him. I followed a second later, my steps slower, hesitant, like I was afraid the ground beneath me might disappear. The penthouse stretched endlessly, wrapped in glass walls that exposed the city below like a glowing ocean of lights. The rain had stopped completely now, leaving behind a sky that shimmered faintly with scattered stars. From up here, everything looked small. Problems, pain, even heartbreak. For the first time since morning, I could breathe. Sit, Adrian said calmly, gesturing toward a large cream-colored sofa. His voice wasn't commanding, but it carried authority. The kind people didn't question. I sat down slowly, my fingers brushing against the soft fabric beneath me. It felt expensive. Everything here did. But, strangely, it didn't feel uncomfortable, just unfamiliar. Adrian moved toward a sleek bar in the corner, pouring a glass of water instead of alcohol. That detail didn't go unnoticed. He handed it to me without a word. Thank you, I whispered. Our fingers brushed for a split second, and something shifted again. Subtle, electric, dangerous. You don't seem surprised, I said after a moment, staring into the water as if it held answers. About what? He asked. About my husband cheating. Adrian leaned slightly against the counter, his expression unreadable again. I'm not, he said simply. I looked up. Why? Because people don't betray others, he replied calmly. They reveal who they've always been. The words hit me hard, not because they were cruel, but because they felt true, painfully true. Silence settled between us again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with thoughts, questions, unspoken emotions. I studied him carefully now. Everything about Adrian felt controlled, measured, like nothing he did was accidental. But beneath that calm surface, there was something else, something darker. You said you've experienced it too, I said softly. What happened? For the first time since I met him, Adrian didn't respond immediately. His gaze shifted slightly, not avoiding the question, but not fully facing it either. And that hesitation told me everything. It wasn't just betrayal, he said finally, his voice quieter now. It was strategy. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? He pushed himself off the counter, walking slowly toward the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes, making them look almost distant. I built everything from nothing, he began. Every deal, every risk, every sleepless night. It was all mine. There was no pride in his tone, only fact. And then, I asked carefully, and then someone decided they wanted it. My grip tightened around the glass. Someone you trusted? A pause. Then, yes. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Heavier, colder. Was it a woman? I asked quietly. Adrian let out a faint breath that almost sounded like a humorless laugh. Yes. Something in my chest twisted. Not jealousy, not curiosity. Something else. something that felt like connection. She didn't just cheat, he continued. She partnered with my competitor, leaked information, tried to destroy everything I built from the inside. My eyes widened slightly. That's not just betrayal. That's war, he finished. The word echoed in the room. Sharp, final. What happened to her? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Adrian turned to face me fully now, and for the first time, I saw it. Not anger, not pain, but something far more dangerous. Control. I don't lose, he said calmly. A chill spread through my entire body, because I believed him. Every word. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was understanding. Two broken people. Different stories. Same pain. You're not like him, Adrian said suddenly. I blinked. What? Your husband, he clarified. You don't look like someone who would ignore the truth. A bitter smile touched my lips. I did. I admitted, for a long time. He shook his head slightly. No, he said. You trusted. The correction was small, but it changed everything. Because for the first time that day, I didn't feel stupid. I didn't feel weak. I just felt human. Why are you helping me? I asked after a moment. The question had been sitting in my chest since I walked in. Adrian didn't hesitate this time. Because I know what it feels like to have everything taken from you in a moment, he said. His eyes held mine. Steady, unwavering. And I don't like seeing people break when they don't have to. Something inside me softened. Just a little. I left, I said quietly. I walked out. Good, he replied instantly. The certainty in his voice startled me. You don't think I should have tried to fix it? Adrian's expression didn't change. No. The firmness of his answer left no room for doubt. Why? Because broken trust isn't a mistake, he said. It's a decision. His words settled deep inside me, anchoring something that had been floating all day. Doubt, guilt, confusion. All of it slowly fading. Hours seemed to pass without us noticing. We talked, not constantly, but enough. Small things, heavy things, silences that somehow said more than words ever could. And with every passing moment, something inside me began to change. The pain didn't disappear, but it shifted from something that was destroying me to something that was reshaping me. At some point, I stood up and walked toward the glass wall, looking out at the city below. It's strange, I said softly. What is? Adrian asked from behind me. This morning, I thought my life was over. I paused, then, and now it feels like it's just starting. He didn't respond immediately, but I felt his presence move closer, not touching, not crossing any lines. Just there. You're stronger than you think, he said quietly. I let out a small breath, or maybe I just didn't have a choice. Strength and survival are the same thing, he replied. I turned to face him, and for a moment, everything slowed. The distance between us, the quiet tension, the unspoken understanding. It was all there, growing, building, dangerous in ways I didn't fully understand yet. Thank you, I said softly. For what? For not letting me feel small today. His gaze softened, just slightly. You were never small, he said. And something about the way he said it made me believe him. That night didn't fix me. It didn't erase the pain. It didn't magically make everything okay. But it did something more important. It gave me perspective, power, and a glimpse of a version of myself I had never seen before. As I stood there, looking at the man who had somehow walked into my life at its lowest point, I realized something. Meeting Adrian wasn't coincidence. It was the beginning of something bigger than heartbreak, bigger than revenge, bigger than anything I had ever imagined. And I had no idea that the next step I would take would pull me deeper into his world, a world of power, secrets, and consequences I wasn't ready for. Morning didn't feel the same anymore. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't wake up with heaviness in my chest. I woke up in silence, but not the suffocating kind, the peaceful kind. Soft sunlight filtered through the massive glass windows of Adrian's penthouse, painting golden reflections across the marble floors. The city below was already alive. Cars moving like streams of light. People rushing into another day filled with purpose. And for once, I didn't feel left behind. I stood there for a long moment, barefoot against the cold floor, holding a cup of coffee I hadn't even realized I made. Everything felt different, not fixed, but shifting, like I had stepped out of one life and into another without fully understanding how. You're thinking too much. His voice came from behind me, calm, steady, familiar now. I didn't turn immediately. Is it that obvious? I asked softly. Yes. A faint smile touched my lips. I turned slowly. Adrian stood there, sleeves rolled up, his usual composed demeanor intact. But there was something else today, something lighter. Or maybe I was just seeing him differently. I should leave, I said after a moment. The words felt strange, uncertain, like I wasn't sure I wanted them to be true. Adrian studied me carefully. You can, he said. A pause. But you don't have to rush. That simple sentence carried more weight than it should have, because for the first time in my life, someone wasn't pushing me, wasn't expecting something from me, wasn't controlling my next step. The choice was mine. I don't even know what I'm going back to, I admitted quietly. My home? Did it still feel like home? My marriage? That was already gone. My life? That felt like a blank page. Adrian walked closer, stopping just enough distance away to respect the invisible line between us. Then don't go back, he said calmly. My breath caught. What? Not everything that breaks needs to be rebuilt, he continued. Some things are meant to end. His words settled deep inside me. Not harsh, not forceful, just true. That day didn't feel rushed. It unfolded slowly. Naturally, Adrian had work, calls, meetings, decisions that clearly carried weight, but somehow, even in the middle of all that, he didn't disappear. He included me, not forcefully, not awkwardly, just seamlessly. I watched him as the day went on, the way people spoke to him, with respect, with caution, the way he listened, carefully, sharply, missing nothing, the way he made decisions, quick, precise, final. This wasn't just a man with money. This was a man with power. And yet, with me, he was different. Come with me, he said later that afternoon. Where? I asked. Office. I hesitated. I don't think I belong there. Adrian's gaze met mine instantly. You don't belong anywhere you feel small, he said. And you won't feel small there. Something in my chest tightened, not from fear, from something else, something that felt dangerously close to confidence. His office building was even more intimidating than the penthouse. Glass walls, high ceilings, people moving with purpose. Everything felt sharp, fast, important. And then there was me, walking beside him, still healing, still unsure, but not invisible anymore. Heads turned as we entered, not in a loud way, but in a way that was impossible to ignore. Whispers, glances, curiosity. Who is she? I didn't need to hear it to know. They were thinking it. My step slowed slightly. Adrian noticed. Without a word, he moved just a little closer. Not touching, but enough. Enough to remind everyone. I wasn't alone. Hours later, as the sun dipped low and the city turned golden again, we stepped out of the building. And that's when it happened. The moment I wasn't ready for. The moment I should have expected. The moment that changed everything again. Wait! The voice was familiar. Too familiar. My entire body froze. Slowly, I turned, and there he was. Ethan. He looked different. Not polished. Not confident. Not in control. His eyes searched my face desperately, like he was trying to find something that had already disappeared. You just walked out, he said, his voice strained. No explanation, no conversation, nothing. A bitter laugh almost escaped me. No explanation? I repeated, Are you serious right now? He stepped closer. I made a mistake, he said quickly. I admitted that. A mistake. That word again. So small, so meaningless compared to what he did. It wasn't a mistake, I said quietly. It was a choice. His expression tightened. I said I was sorry. And I heard you, I replied. It just doesn't change anything. Silence stretched between us. Heavy, uncomfortable, final. Then his eyes shifted, past me, toward Adrian. And everything changed. Who is this? He asked sharply. The tone, possessive, demanding, as if he still had a right. Something inside me snapped again. But this time, it wasn't pain. It was strength. I turned slightly, standing straighter than I had in days. This, I said calmly, this is none of your business. Ethan's jaw clenched. You move on already? He scoffed. That fast? I held his gaze, unshaken. No, I said. I woke up. The words hit harder than any scream ever could. Even Adrian didn't speak. But I felt it, the shift, the respect. Ethan let out a frustrated breath. You're making a mistake, he muttered. I smiled slightly. No, I said softly. I already made one. And with that, I turned away. This time, not broken, not lost, but walking forward. We didn't speak immediately as we got into the car. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy with meaning. You handle that well, Adrian said finally. I looked out the window, watching the city lights blur past. I didn't feel strong. I admitted. You were, he replied. I turned to him slowly. And what happens now? I asked. The question wasn't just about Ethan or my past. It was about everything. My future. Him. Us. Adrian's gaze held mine. Steady, unreadable, but intense. That, he said quietly, depends on what you want. And for the first time in my life, I realized something powerful. I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me anymore. I was choosing myself, my future, my next step. But deep down, I knew one thing. Choosing this path, choosing him, would come with a cost. Because men like Adrian didn't live simple lives. They came with power, with enemies, with secrets. And I had just stepped into all of it. The city looked different now, not because it had changed, but because I had. The same streets, the same buildings, the same endless rhythm of life moving forward. But this time, I wasn't watching from the sidelines. I was part of it. No, I was shaping my place in it. Days turned into weeks. And somewhere between the quiet mornings in Adrian's penthouse and the structured chaos of his world, I found something I didn't even realize I had lost. Myself. Not the version of me that adjusted, compromised, and stayed silent just to keep things together, but the version that stood firm. That questioned, that chose, that walked away when necessary. Adrian didn't try to change me, and maybe that's why everything changed. He didn't fix me. He didn't save me. He simply saw me and gave me the space to rebuild. You're different, he said one evening, watching me as I reviewed documents spread across a glass table. I looked up. Better or worse? A faint smirk touched his lips. Stronger. The words settled into my chest. Warm, steady, real. Working with him hadn't been planned. It just happened. One conversation turned into curiosity. Curiosity turned into involvement. And before I realized it, I was sitting in meetings, understanding deals, learning how power actually worked. Not loud, not reckless, but calculated, precise, and unshakable. You don't hesitate anymore, Adrian said once. I used to hesitate too much, I replied. And now, I met his gaze. Now I know what I deserve. Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, respect, something deeper that neither of us said out loud. But life doesn't let you grow without testing you. And mine came sooner than I expected. The news broke on a random afternoon. Quick, sharp, unforgiving. Ethan's company collapsed. I stared at the screen, the headline blurring for a second before I forced myself to focus. Fraud allegations, internal leaks, financial manipulation. The words felt strangely familiar. Too familiar. A slow realization settled in. This wasn't random. He partnered with the wrong people. Adrian said calmly from across the room. I looked up at him. You knew? I knew the type of man he was, he corrected. A chill ran through me. And you let it happen? Adrian didn't flinch. I don't interfere with people destroying themselves. The words were cold, but not cruel, just true. Days later, I saw Ethan again. But this time, he wasn't standing tall. He wasn't confident. He wasn't a man who thought he could hide betrayal behind sweet lies. He looked broken. I lost everything, he said, his voice hollow as he stood in front of me. The same man who once made me feel small, now couldn't even meet my eyes. They turned on me, he continued. The people I trusted, they used me. The irony didn't go unnoticed. You mean like you used me? I asked quietly. He flinched. I made a mistake, he whispered again. But this time, the words didn't hurt. They didn't shake me. They didn't mean anything at all. I loved you, he added, his voice cracking. And for a moment, I searched his face, not for truth, but for closure. And I found it, not in what he said, but in what I felt. Nothing. Maybe you did, I said softly, but not enough to respect me. Silence. Final. Complete. You've changed, he said. I nodded slightly. Yes. A pause. Then I finally chose myself. I walked away again, but this time it didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom. That night, I stood once again in front of the glass walls of Adrian's penthouse. The city stretched endlessly below, glowing alive, unstoppable. Just like me. You don't feel sorry for him, Adrian said from behind me. It wasn't a question. I shook my head slowly. No. A pause. He made his choices. Adrian stepped closer, stopping beside me. And you made yours. I turned to face him. The air shifted instantly. That same tension. That same unspoken connection. But this time, it wasn't uncertain. It wasn't fragile. It was real. You never told me everything. I said quietly. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. About what? Your past, I replied. Your revenge. A faint shadow crossed his expression. I told you enough. Not everything. For a moment, he said nothing. And then, the woman who betrayed me, he said slowly, lost everything too. My breath stilled. Because of you? His silence was the answer. Does it make you feel better? I asked. The question lingered. Heavy, honest. Adrian looked out the city for a moment before responding. No, that surprised me. It doesn't fix betrayal, he continued. It doesn't erase it. Then why do it? I asked softly. He turned to me again. Because some people don't learn until they face consequences. I studied him carefully. The power, the control, the darkness. It was all real, but so was something else. Something quieter, something human. And what about now? I asked. His gaze softened just slightly. Now, he said, I choose differently. The words settled between us, changing everything. Adrian, I said quietly. Yes. I hesitated, not out of fear, but because I understood the weight of what I was about to say. I'm not broken anymore. A pause. And I'm not here because I need saving. His expression didn't change, but his eyes did. I know, he said. I took a small step closer, closing the distance, choosing it. I'm here because I want to be. Silence. Then, finally, something shifted. Not dramatic, not explosive, but real. Adrian reached for my hand, slowly, carefully. Like even now, he was giving me the choice to pull away. But I didn't. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing control. I felt like I had it. The past didn't disappear. The betrayal didn't vanish. The pain didn't rewrite itself. But it became something else. Something that built me instead of breaking me. And as I stood there, looking at the man who entered my life at its darkest moment, I realized something. My husband's affair didn't destroy me. It revealed me, not as someone weak, not as someone replaceable, but as someone who could walk away, rise, and become unstoppable. And maybe, just maybe, it led me exactly where I was meant to be.